What is up, everybody? It is time for another edition of The Morning After, episode 9 of the program. It is the morning after week 12 in the NFL, the morning after another coach firing, this time in the professional ranks, not the college football ranks, but it also is the morning after another wave of, I don't want to say controversy, but definitely conflict and discussion about the college football playoff and the Heisman Trophy. We will get to all of it on the show today. Before we get started, please do me a favor, click the subscribe button, click the sign up button, however you are watching, however you are listening to the show. I greatly appreciate it. But continue to support the content, continue to support the morning after, support the newsletter. How about this? We're 2 newsletters deep. So far, the open rate of the morning after newsletter is about 67, 68%. Based on my research, that is way above what the average newsletter open rate is, which is like 25%. I'm told anything north of 40%, PR professionals are doing backflips and popping champagne. So thank you for being a very loyal audience and continue to, again, click all of the buttons. The newsletter, the YouTube channel, the content, everything. I do this for free. This is my project. This is my container. This is what I think I'm going to be pouring myself, my opinions, my picks, my everything. All of my effort, all of my blood, sweat, and tears. This is my thing. So if you continue to support this channel, this project, you will be supporting me as a broadcaster, as someone who hopes to entertain and inform across the sports and betting landscape as we move forward. All right, let's get to week 12. Man, the NFL just continues to amaze me. It was actually a really good week for the sports books, really good week for the underdogs. I bet all favorites in my contest, and I lost. I went 0-5. I picked all favorites in the contest this week, couple bigger ones, couple smaller ones, and I went 0-5 in the Circa contest this week. But the good news of that, so Circa actually pays out the bottom feeders. They call it the last place award. They do it not only at the end of the year, but also at the end of each quarter. And if you stack together some really bad weeks, sometimes it's harder to go 0-5 than 5-0 because you're not trying to go 0-5. I wasn't trying to go 0-5 this week, but listen, I suck at betting sides this year. I am in contention now for one of the last place quarter prizes. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple weeks. So now I am actually going to try to lose next week. As hard, watch, now I'll go 5-0 because that's just the way it goes in the NFL. As we've discussed on prior shows, the results, the sides, it is plinko. You just don't know where it's going to bounce on the final play. For example, one of the games I was on this week was the Ravens, minus 13.5 in the contest. And they had every opportunity to cover that game, but it just landed 13. You know, it could have landed 14, could have landed 10, landed 13. The way that these games finish, especially the final scores, no rhyme or reason. Very much plinko, very much you just never know where the puck is going to land. In this particular week, a much better week for underdogs. And that, I think, is something that we'll keep in mind over the next couple weeks as we move forward. The big story, though, honestly, underdogs favorites be damned. The big story, which took place just before I clicked record, so thank you very much, Raiders, for announcing this before I recorded the podcast, is Chip Kelly fired. Raiders offensive coordinator, the highest paid coordinator in the sport, $6 million this year. Doesn't make it to Thanksgiving. Now, to be fair, probably was warranted. The Raiders offense was an absolute dumpster fire. They couldn't block. They couldn't run. Geno Smith couldn't complete a forward pass. They traded away their best receiver. They were unable to get Brock Bowers, who is their best offensive weapon, the ball in space. He continues to underperform, even though he's an absolute freak. There was really no other option. And you saw Pete Carroll come out over the last couple weeks and be very critical of Chip Kelly and the play calling, and you saw the end result tonight. Chip Kelly, gone but not forgotten in the NFL. And I think really the lesson here is we need to figure out a way to manage these coordinator and coaching salaries. We're seeing it in the college football world. We'll get to the college football coaching carousel in a little bit. But these coordinator salaries, these coaching salaries are getting absurd. In the college ranks, it's one thing with the head coaching buyouts. In the NFL game, the coordinators are paid like head coaches. Chip Kelly was making $6 million this year. I'd be willing to bet that actually is more than some head coaches in the NFL. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we need to figure out a way to not penalize the owners, the teams, and really, frankly, the players for going through all of these coaching changes midseason. It's really tough. I don't know what the right answer is. Maybe we figure out a way to do like a weekly contract. Like, can we do like half season contracts? Can we do like, all right, you're the head coach for a half a season, and we'll extend you through the rest of the season once we get to like week 10. It's really insane. Again, that'll obviously never happen. That's pie in the sky, just based off of probably how a lot of the collective bargaining agreements are worked. I just don't think you could do that week to week with a coach or a coordinator. But we are getting insane. It is getting insane with just how lucrative and how short-lived these coordinator and coaching contracts are in the NFL. It was another good week for the unsung heroes in the NFL. Who are the unsung heroes? The Patriots, the Broncos, who are on a bye, and some of the teams that we maybe don't expect to compete for Super Bowls, for conference championships. They continue to win and play well. Meanwhile, the teams that are expected to win and play well, the reigning MVP of the league, Josh Allen, another L for him. Lamar Jackson didn't look great, even though the Ravens did win, and Patrick Mahomes, again, didn't look great, but the Chiefs were able to pull out a win. So how about this stat, which just blows my mind? And this stat, to me, sums up the NFL in 2025 and just how topsy-turvy it is. Drake May, Bo Nix, Daniel Jones are a combined 27-7, while Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, a combined 19-14. Again, that's the Patriots, the Broncos, the Colts, 27-7. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, 19-14. 2 times more losses for those 3 elite quarterbacks and elite teams than the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Colts. Truly remarkable stuff in the NFL this year, and I really think it speaks to where we are at, especially in the AFC. The NFC, I think, is much more simple, cut and dry at the top. The AFC, the best teams don't have the best records, and it's going to make for a fascinating postseason, not only in terms of home field, in terms of who makes it out of the AFC, but also the betting lines. You're going to be seeing a lot of road favorites, most likely, in the AFC postseason. And I think that is going to make for a fascinating discussion. Are you going to be betting on Patrick Mahomes as a road favorite at Indy, at Denver, at New England in the AFC Championship game? Or are you going to be betting on the home dog? It's crazy. A home dog in the AFC Championship game, that's got to be rare. That's got to be rarefied stuff. I'm very excited to watch it play out in the AFC. I think the NFC, again, is a little more cut and dry, but the AFC certainly is fascinating. All right, I got some really positive feedback. Hold on one second. I got some really positive feedback last week about going through each game and upgrading, downgrading based off of the result, and then talking about my ratings at the end. Glenn, one of the loyal listeners of the podcast, sent me an email. He responded to the newsletter. Reply to the newsletter, guys. It goes in my email inbox. I'll write you a letter back. And he said that was really helpful for him. So we're going to keep doing that. And I do think we'll do it quickly. We're not going to go, labor on each game. But I do think the overall exercise of going through each game and saying, this was a real result, I'm upgrading, or this was kind of a skin of their teeth win, I'm just going to leave it flat, or this was Fugazi, I'm downgrading. You really can gauge a real good level of context on these teams by doing this. So let's start with Thursday night. Houston beats the Bills. They were a dog in the game. Obviously, we upgrade Houston. Not a decisive win in the box score. Buffalo actually slightly outgained them yards per play, but Buffalo was a -3 turnover margin, and Josh Allen looks like he's not quite playing to that MVP level. So we definitely downgrade Buffalo, and we upgrade Houston. 8 sacks for Josh Allen in that game. The offensive line for Buffalo, you give credit to Houston. I don't always like when we resort to the negative, even though that gets more clicks. Like, oh, Josh Allen sucked tonight. How about the Texans pass rush is really good? We told you a couple weeks ago, Texans at 6-1 might be a good long shot bet in the division. That's where the price is right now because of their loss to Denver in that game where C.J. Stroud got hurt. But now that Stroud's likely coming back next week and you upgrade Houston and they get the Colts, maybe it's time now to put another shekel on the Texans to win the AFC South, or just bet them to, beat the Colts next week. We'll get to the look-ahead lines in just a minute. The Bears beat the Steelers by a field goal. Game landed right on the number. Slight win in the box score for Chicago, but Pittsburgh was a plus 10 net success rate, and they kind of let Mason Rudolph march it up and down the field. There was a little bit of, defensive issues for Chicago in that game, and the Steelers did, I believe, score at least once defensively. I think they had a special teams touchdown too. But they were also 3 for 3 in the red zone, like 8 for 14 on third downs. The Chicago defense didn't look great. I didn't upgrade or downgrade either team. I think Pittsburgh gets back Aaron Rodgers next week, so maybe slight upgrade for Pittsburgh next week. Chicago, I think we've reached their peak value. I mean, they're an 8-3 team, and I don't think they're a great 8-3 team. I think they're kind of a soft 8-3, and I think that makes it really hard to upgrade them on a game where they didn't cover the spread. So I think that's where I'm at right now. Unless the Bears really exceed the market expectations, I think it's really tough to continue to upgrade them until their defense improves and until Caleb Williams cleans up some of the stuff that's ailed him. Now, don't get me wrong. I saw a lot of great content this week about what an awesome year Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson are having with the explosive plays and making improvements, and that is a fact. Ben Johnson has had a serious impact on Caleb Williams' development to the positive. He's a much better quarterback this year than he was last year, but he was really bad last year. And so they had a long way to go. And the defense is still not playing like a top 10 unit. So it's hard to, even though, again, their number of wins puts them in the top tier of the NFC, I wouldn't price them like a top tier NFC team. I would still price them in the middle tier. I think I have them right now like 2 or 3 points better than an average team. 2 points better than an average team. Again, they're above average, but they're not elite. I think they're kind of in that middle tier right now, and I wouldn't upgrade them for the win against the Steelers on Sunday. Patriots over the Bengals by 6, didn't cover. Again, another one of those games where Cincinnati had the ball late with a chance to score and win the game. And New England, Drake May, right, throws the pick 6. Was not a decisive win in the box score for the Patriots. I would not upgrade New England. They are very similar to the Bears, where they're winning a ton of games, but I still think the quarterback has some maturity to do, some maturing to do. And I think in those closer games against playoff caliber teams, Cincinnati's not one of them, at least not right now, not with Joe Flacco. I just don't trust the quarterback to make big throws. I just don't trust the overall operation to stay as prolific as it has. Drake May has flashed the ceiling this year. What did I say? I think on the first show, I said he's going to be the MVP runner-up. He's not going to win the award because there's just too many great quarterbacks in front of him, and one of them, this year it happens to be Matthew Stafford, is going to keep playing well, and the tenure of that quarterback is going to win out in the end. You got to give it to Stafford at this point. But that doesn't take anything away from Drake May's development this year. And Josh McDaniels, the two of them together are fantastic. But let's be honest, they don't have an elite wide receiver one. Their best running back is a guy they don't trust in pass pro. And their defense has had some moments this year where you don't fully trust them, right? I do think right now New England is another one of those teams that's good, not great. If they were in let's say they win the number 1 seed in the AFC, which is very possible right now, they have 10 wins, and they get the first round bye, and they then host the divisional playoffs, they might be a home dog in that game. If it's Kansas City or Buffalo or Baltimore, it's very possible that the number 1 seed in the AFC is a home underdog in the first round of the playoffs or in their first playoff game in the divisional round. Very possible. Very rare, but very possible based off of how Buffalo and Baltimore and Kansas City are being priced compared to New England. I don't think you're going to have a lot of odds makers going to upgrade New England considerably for their win against Cincinnati today. I just don't. And I don't think you're going to keep seeing them get upgraded unless they keep putting together ridiculous performances. But again, they've won 9 games in a row and they've got the number 1 record in the AFC, so you got to give them some respect. I struggle with this. I struggle with how the sports books and how the odds makers perceive teams compared to their actual win-loss record. And where are my blind spots? Am I not giving New England and Chicago enough credit for winning games? Am I relying too much on the ratings and the DVOA and the analytics and the stuff that creates the ratings, like how the sausage is made? Or am I just ignoring the fact that Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel are damn good coaches and they win close games, regardless of how pretty it is? Great comment from Brent Venables over the weekend. It ain't a beauty contest. It's about winning games. And these teams right now, they're not doing it pretty, but they're winning games. And at some point, I guess we've got to give them their respect. The Lions won a game that they probably should have lost. Jameis Winston was off his freaking rocker today. Jameis Winston was making plays. So I had the Lions in a teaser. I teased them down from 10-3. I do a stupid teaser every week with like 5 or 6 teams. I do a 7-pointer and I just have fun with it. And so I teased them down to 3. And so I was just hoping they would win the game. And Jameis Winston, man, was out of his freaking mind. Like he was on some kind of Quaalude, like performance enhancing drug. It was insane. But that's the Jameis Winston experience. He caught a touchdown pass. He threw a couple more. But the Lions are a tough football team. They got outgained for most of the game. But then late, they really turned it on. Jahmyr Gibbs was ridiculous. I was on the Montgomery prop, so I kind of got hosed because it was the right read that the Giants give up a ton of explosives, but just the wrong execution on not including Gibbs in my wagers and just betting on Montgomery. But the Lions, almost 8 yards per play, 51% success rate. I don't think I upgrade them for this win because I just think they kind of showed you that they're still not at peak value. They're not performing at peak, and their game next Thursday against the Packers is going to be fascinating to watch. I think the offensive line's gettable. The offensive line's a little banged up right now. I think Goff, interior pressure is kind of getting to him a little bit, and that's where the Packers might be able to get to him. So I'm not like running to upgrade the Lions, but still a nice win for them. Didn't cover the spread. Nice win. Came back. Needed it because of the loss, and they continue to win games post losing. I think they're now 10-0 after a loss since 2023. So they are a bounce back team, but I'm not running to upgrade them. And I'm not going to downgrade the Giants because I think the Giants are going to be damn interesting this year. They're not going to be very good, but they're going to be fun to watch with Winston. If it is still Winston, we'll see. Maybe they go back to Dart. But I'll be honest, the way Jameis Winston was throwing it around, I might let him play another week and give Jackson Dart another week from the concussion. You're not going anywhere with Dart this year. Dude's had 2 concussions this year. Let him take his time coming back. He will play next year. He is a human pincushion. He doesn't need to take a 3rd concussion down the stretch when the Giants have no chance of making the playoffs. In fact, they've already been eliminated from the postseason because of how good the NFC is. I'm upgrading Green Bay. Nice win over the Vikings. Not a dominant offensive performance, just 4.4 yards per play, but almost 50% success rate. The key was their defense continues to be elite, and J.J. McCarthy really struggled. 3 turnovers, 5 sacks, only reached the red zone once. 3.3 yards per play. We're downgrading Minnesota. The J.J. McCarthy experience is turning into a disaster. He is not ready to play in the NFL, and not even Kevin O'Connell can save him. You see just how different that offense is this year. Same personnel. The only difference is you go from Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy. That is the big difference, and you're seeing how big of a difference it is. Unfortunately, J.J., listen, you're not going to get every quarterback decision right. They were really heavy on this guy. I'm not saying give up on him, but he lacks the physical stature that a Darnold has, that a Daniel Jones has, right? Like when guys like Jones and Darnold struggled early in their careers, these were still 6'4", 6'5" guys, 220 pounds with laser rocket arms. J.J. McCarthy's not that. And I think that's where you need to kind of catch lightning in a bottle with McCarthy. And I think, still 6'3", 220, so he still has some size to him, but not quite as prolific with his physical tools, I think, as some of those other guys. So he really needs the seasoning and the timing, and it's just not there yet. Maybe he'll develop it, and I do think the Vikings will be patient with him, but this year, forget it. Definitely downgrading Minnesota. Minnesota continues to be a team that we should look to fade probably in the second half. The Seahawks beat the Titans. They didn't cover, but they gained 7.5 yards per play, and they were a plus 12% net success rate. They probably should have covered. They had multiple opportunities to cover. I just think in the second half, they realized the game was over. They were on the road, and thankfully, they went over their team total. That was one of my bigger bets of the week. But they did not cover the spread. I'm not going to upgrade Seattle. I still think we know what Seattle is at this point. They're going to bully the bad teams, and they're probably going to struggle against the good ones, but their defense is elite. It will keep them in most games, especially against the really good offenses. I just don't trust Darnold in a big spot. That's really what it comes down to. Chiefs beat the Colts in overtime. Slight win in the box score. Frankly, the Chiefs probably should have won by more. The turnover in the first quarter where Mahomes had the pass tipped and the guy made an incredible interception. that was a fluky play. Like, you play that out 1,000 times, he probably makes that interception like 1-2%. Like, it was like the ball got tipped in the air and it went right down to him. It could have bounced anywhere. It bounced right into his hands. And then the Colts scored a touchdown quickly after that. The Chiefs did a great job battling back. Indy was holding them down for most of the game, but Kansas City did what Kansas City does, man. They just make plays in big spots. Those balls haven't bounced their way yet this year. The season is still young. We still have the most important games to play. It bounced their way today. They made the plays they needed to make to win the game today. I didn't upgrade them because I already have them as one of my highest ranked teams in the AFC, and I'm not going to upgrade them for a skin of their teeth 3-point win over a team they probably should have won by 2 scores against. But Kansas City is still a Super Bowl contender, guys. I don't care what their record is. I do not care. If you give me Mahomes in a playoff game against a quarterback like Daniel Jones or Drake May or Bo Nix, I'm taking Mahomes. I am. And I would rather lose money betting on Mahomes than lose money betting on the other guy. I can look myself in the mirror the next day and say to myself, you lost money betting on Mahomes. Whereas if I lose money betting against Mahomes on Daniel Jones, then I have to look myself in the mirror the next day and said, you faded Patrick Mahomes and you bet on Daniel Jones. You deserve this. Whereas I can be much more content with my loss. I will be much less upset if I go down with the GOAT instead of betting on the guy who is the worst quarterback in the big game. And we have a lot more big games to play down the stretch of the season. But the Chiefs won a big one today. They're going to make the playoffs. Are they going to win the AFC West? Probably not, because they're significantly far behind and the Broncos have stacked a lot of wins. But nothing would shock me in this NFL. So do not count the Chiefs out for the division, but I do feel comfortable that they are going to make the playoffs. And that was a huge game today for their conference record. Ravens beat the Jets 23-10. Not much to get to here. Lamar Jackson and the offense needs to play better for Baltimore, but the Ravens defense is still good, and the Jets are kind of a dumpster fire. Although they did gain almost 5 yards per play. The problem was they turned it over twice, and the rest of their offense down to down was just not consistent enough. The Ravens, though, are a very formidable team. I just think Lamar Jackson has to get back into a rhythm and kind of get back into running shape. He looked a little hesitant with his legs today. I think overall Lamar is still kind of playing through some things. He didn't look like he was in peak form. And there were a couple drops, like Mark Andrews dropped a touchdown. Like there was a couple spots where I was like, the Ravens are about to pull away, and then the Jets just kind of hung on by the skin of their teeth. But hey, they covered the spread. Good for the Jets. Good for Aaron Glenn. I'm not downgrading the Jets, though. I'm not upgrading the Ravens. Again, if you're not covering a big spread, I'm not upgrading you. Because if you're just beating a team that you should beat by a smaller margin than expected, I'm not going to upgrade you, especially with the Ravens only gaining 4.2 yards per play. Can't upgrade the Ravens, even though they won by 13. Browns over the Raiders, 24-10. Oh, my God. I mean, this is why Chip Kelly got fired. The Browns, I'll be honest, like the weird box score. Browns, 5.6 yards per play, 26% success rate. They were a minus in the net success rate, and they were a +2 in net yards per play. A weird freaking box score. They won the turnover margin. Really, the difference in the game was 10 sacks for Geno Smith. 10 sacks and also 13 penalties for the Raiders. The Raiders are undisciplined. They can't block. They can't move the football. Now they're without their offensive coordinator. Who knows who will be hired? I didn't see who's going to be hired to call plays next week. Who will be the interim? I don't really think it matters. The Raiders are a disaster. We're absolutely downgrading Vegas. We're absolutely upgrading the Browns anytime you win as a dog. Congrats to Shedeur Sanders. A lot of smoke. Dude gets more shit talked about him than probably any third-string quarterback in the whole NFL. But he went into Vegas, went on the road, won a football game. I don't care how bad the Raiders are. You don't apologize for winning in the NFL. Congrats to Shedeur. I think it's the first time a Browns rookie won his first ever start in like 30 years. Or I think the stat is the first Brown to win his first career start at quarterback in like 30 years. I forget who it was. They were showing the highlights of it during the game. It was like forever ago. They were playing in a baseball stadium, and Matt Stover kicked the game-winning field goal, for those who remember that name from back in the day. But congrats to the Browns. Huge game for the number one pick. Now, actually, the Titans and the Giants, Saints, and Jets and Raiders. Like, those are your 5 teams that are all going to kind of be in the mix for the number 1 pick. I believe the Browns play the Titans coming up soon. And I think the Browns also play the Saints. I think the Titans play the Browns and the Saints coming up. Yes. So Browns, Titans, and Saints, Titans are going to be 2 massive games over the next couple weeks that are going to determine who is going to have the number 1 pick. But right now, it looks like the Titans, unless they can figure out a way to beat the Saints in a couple weeks. We'll see. That should be super fascinating to watch. And the Jets and the Giants also in the mix. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to win a meaningless game in the last week or two to screw their chances of getting the number 1 pick. The Jets also have another first-round pick from Indy for the Sauce Gardner trade. But, of course, the Colts are probably going to be picking towards the end of the first round. But the Jets are going to have a top 5 pick and probably a bottom 5 pick in the first round coming up in 2026. Jags beat the Cardinals in overtime. The Jags overcame 4 turnovers and beat the Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett didn't have a great game. Sacked 6 times, 1 for 3 in the red zone. They turned it over. They didn't turn it over, but only 4.3 yards per play. So they didn't do much with the turnovers, and Jacksonville was able to figure out a way to win the game in overtime. I guess you credit Trevor Lawrence, 6.1 yards per play. It wasn't a sexy win for the Jags, and they didn't cover the spread. I'm not upgrading Jacksonville. I'm not downgrading Arizona. I think both of those teams are priced correctly based off of the way this game turned out. I am going to upgrade the Cowboys, though. Down 21-0. They shut out the Eagles over the final 40 minutes of the game. They gained 7 yards per play. They won the box score. The Eagles committed 14 penalties. I mean, Dallas really disrupted that game in the second half. They really held Philly down. Obviously, we're going to downgrade the Eagles anytime you lose as a favorite outright and you get shut out in the second half. And that Cowboys defense, right? They gained a couple of players at the deadline, getting a little bit healthier. Dallas has a path in the NFC. They have a path not only to win the NFC East, but they have a path to make the playoffs. They're in the mix. They're 2 games back, and they still have a couple of divisional games left against the Commanders and the Giants. They play the Chiefs next week, though, so unless they beat the Chiefs, it's going to be tough, I think, for them to win the division. But they definitely have a chance to make the playoffs in the NFC. Huge win for Jerry today and the Cowboys, so we're definitely upgrading Dallas. I'm going to upgrade Atlanta as a slight dog. They went into New Orleans and really stuffed the Saints into a locker. Tyler Shuck looks terrible. 3.8 yards per play for the Saints, 5 sacks, 0 for 3 in the red zone. Atlanta's defense did the job. Kirk Cousins wasn't great, but he just kind of steadied the ship. I think maybe as he gets into a little bit more of a rhythm, maybe he can not spark the Falcons, but at least, again, keep the ship afloat and not go off of the deep end. Because they do play a few games down. Listen, the NFC South, guys, Atlanta's 2 back. Atlanta's 2 back, and they still play the Bucs in a couple of weeks. So they play the Bucs, and the only problem is they lost twice to Carolina. So they've got to finish ahead of Carolina because they will be on the wrong end of the tiebreaker. But Carolina's probably going to lose to San Francisco on Monday night. You can bet the Falcons right now at 50-1 to win the NFC South. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but it's 50-1. So, you know, they play the Jets next week. You'd expect them to win that game. Then they get the Seahawks at home. Tough game. But it's still in Seattle going west to east, early game. And then you get Tampa. In Tampa on a Thursday night. Based on the Baker Mayfield injury, he got hurt in this Sunday night game. I don't know, man. I wouldn't be shocked if 9-8 wins the NFC South this year, as it typically does in that division. And the South divisions just always seem like they're always up for grabs. And I don't know, maybe Atlanta can make a run. They play the Cardinals, the Rams, and then the Saints down the stretch. And who knows, the Rams at that point might not be playing for anything. They probably will be. But you get that Saints game to finish the season. I don't know. I think Atlanta maybe can go 9-8. I think they've got to beat. They're going to have to, in order for them to go 9-8, they're going to have to go 3-1 in a stretch against the Saints, the Bucks, the Cardinals, and the Rams. Like, I'm giving them the wins over the Saints and the Jets. They're going to beat the Saints. They're going to beat the Jets. So that'll get them to 6-7. So can you go 3-1 over a 4-game stretch of home against Seattle, at Tampa, at Arizona, home against the Rams? Probably tough to do. Probably more like 2-2, and they'll finish 8-9. But who knows? Maybe 8-9 will win the frickin' NFC South. Who does Carolina have down the stretch? So Carolina probably is going to lose to San Francisco on Monday night. Then they play the Rams. Probably going to lose that game too. Then they play the Bucks twice and the Seahawks. And then they have a game at the Saints in between. Carolina is going to be lucky to win 2 out of those last 6 games. I think Carolina's going 8-9. And Tampa Bay just lost their quarterback. And they've got to play the Cardinals, the Saints, the Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. So the Bucks have the considerable easier schedule. But their quarterback just got hurt, and we'll see what the extent of that injury is. The NFC South is a fascinating race. I'll be honest. I would take a shekel of pizza money and put it on the Falcons at 50-1, just for shits and giggles. Why the heck not? That division's absolutely nuts. But we're definitely upgrading Atlanta this week after they went on the road and beat New Orleans. Got to upgrade the Rams too. Big win over Tampa. We just saw it on Sunday night. The Bucks 2.9 yards per play. That Rams defense. Listen, Matthew Stafford's the MVP of the league. Period. End of story. He's winning the MVP unless he gets hurt. If he plays every game the rest of the year and the Rams finish as the number 1 seed in the NFC, which is what we've predicted all along, the quarterback of the team that is the number 1 seed in the NFC deserves to be the MVP. I think it's going to be the Rams, and I think it's going to be Matthew Stafford. The bigger question right now is Tampa, and where is their floor? Are they going to just fall off the map completely after starting, I believe, 6-2? They've lost 3 in a row, and then they're now 6-5. It all started with that. Really, they've lost 4 out of the last 5 games, starting with that Lions game on Monday night. And then they beat the Saints because everybody beats the Saints. But then it's loss, Patriots, Bills, Rams. Now, the schedule, again, gets easier for Tampa down the stretch. But now you've got the Baker Mayfield injury to worry about. Hopefully, Egbuka still wins Rookie of the Year for us. We gave that out at 9-1, I think, on our first show. And I think that'll probably be the only money I make in the awards markets this year because my MVP bets are kind of looking poor with Baker and with Mahomes and I forget who else I have. But Matthew Stafford's going to win MVP. I think we can pretty much write that one off right now. All right, that'll conclude our NFL recaps in Week 12. Again, the teams I'm upgrading the Rams, I'm upgrading the Falcons, I'm upgrading the Cowboys, upgrading the Browns, upgrading the Packers, upgrading the Texans. We're downgrading the Bills, downgrading the Vikings, downgrading the Raiders, the Eagles, the Saints, and the Bucks for their losses. Right now, my power ratings, I've got the Rams as my number 1 team in my power ratings, 9 points better than an average team. The way I do my power ratings, I am higher on the good teams, lower on the bad teams. My top and bottom are pretty extreme. And then I've got more of a moderate middle. I've got the Chiefs 7 points better as the number 2 team in my ratings. Then it's Eagles, Bills, Lions, Ravens at 6. So I've got 6 teams really in my top 6 that are kind of on that next tier, that top tier. Rams, Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Lions, Ravens. Those are the 6 teams that I really think are Super Bowl contenders, that I think are stamp them. They're one of those 6. I feel like I've got my Super Bowl champion out of those 6. In my second tier, I've got Seattle, Denver, Green Bay, Indy, New England, Houston, and I guess maybe you throw Chicago in, but I don't really trust them. I think it's that next 6, right? Let's go 6-6 because there's 12 teams. Actually, no, there's 14 in the playoffs, so I'll give you 14. I'll give you my top 14, 7-7. It's not 7-7 split AFC NFC. These are just my top 14 teams. Rams, Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Lions, Ravens. That's my top tier. Second tier, Seattle, Denver, Green Bay, Indy, New England, Houston, Chicago, Chargers. Those are all of the teams that I have better than an average team. And then my Cowboys are the 8 of clubs, the middle of the deck. I've got them rated 0 right now. Pittsburgh also, because we're upgrading for Aaron Rodgers, I've got them right in the middle. as a 0. My worst teams in the NFL. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to include San Francisco in the second tier category. I'd put San Francisco in that second tier. In the Seattle, Denver, Green Bay tier. I had them off to the side because they play tonight, so I have their rating incomplete for this week. My worst teams in the NFL, I feel like it's pretty simple. Titans, Saints, and Jets. Those are the teams that I have rated the worst. Commanders, Browns, Raiders, they're all right there. Giants, those are the worst. And then I've got a pretty big gap between Atlanta and Arizona, Cincinnati. We're going to upgrade Cincinnati this week with Burrow coming back, probably about 5 or 6 points. I would usually upgrade Burrow a full 7, but I don't know if he's fully healthy. So we're going like 80% Burrow upgrade. So we'll go 5, maybe 6 points of an upgrade to Cincinnati this week. I had Cincinnati at a -10 as my worst team in the NFL. I'm going to make them a -4 this week. Arizona, Atlanta, -4. And then again, that big drop off. Giants, -6. Raiders, Browns, Commanders, -7, -8. Titans, -9. Saints, Jets, -10. I actually have the Titans rated a point ahead of the Saints and the Jets. How about that? Because the Titans have been covering a couple numbers this year. They've kind of a little bit feisty over the last few weeks with that new coaching staff. Cam Ward showing you, right? Like Cam Ward has way more upside than Tyler Shuck and Tyrod Taylor. So that's why I maybe give the the Titans just a slight nose ahead of the Jets and the Saints. The Jets and the Saints quarterback situations are so bad, hopeless. Whereas the Titans, at least he's the number 1 pick with upside. He has shown you the ceiling at points this year, but he's also shown you the floor. All right, so that's my NFL reactions, my upgrades and downgrades, my power ratings as we head into week 13 in the NFL. Let's go to the look-ahead lines, right? Because I do see some value in the look-ahead lines, and I've already made a couple of bets for this week. Let me get the look-ahead lines up right here because I do think this is something that you guys really enjoyed last week too. I got a nice note about this. So, all right, let's start with Thursday. Let's start with Green Bay and Detroit. And by the way, I'll do a Carolina-San Francisco preview at the end, right? Morning Glory. I'll give you an actionable element for today, for Monday. So I'll do a Carolina-San Francisco preview at the end. We've got a prop bet that we like for that. I'll give that at the end. But let's look ahead to Week 13 in the NFL. 3 games on Thursday. Green Bay, Detroit. Looks like the market's at 3 right now. I make it 3.5. I'm not going to do much here. I think obviously you've got the revenge narrative for the Lions, but I think that Packers defense is going to keep them in it. If this goes to 3.5 because everybody's betting Detroit is a home favorite on Thanksgiving, I'll probably take Green Bay 3.5. But at 3, it's a no bet. Kansas City looks like a 3.5 point favorite at Dallas. I make it 5.5. I'm a little bit heavier on the right. Like as I said, I'm higher on the good teams, lower on the bad teams than maybe the average market sentiment, where the market sometimes is a little bit more compressed than me. I prefer to bet on the really good teams and fade the really bad ones. So I want to know if the Chiefs are maybe a little bit undervalued based off of where I have them. And you could make the argument that I'm too high on the Chiefs. You absolutely could. I'm not married to these numbers. They change every week, and I change them often. But this week, I do see a little bit of value on the Chiefs. Am I running to the window to lay 3.5 on the road on a short week against the team in a must-win, the Cowboys? No. Even though I make it 5.5, it's not that big of a difference. It's not through a key number. It's not going to get me to the window on the Chiefs. But I do expect the Chiefs to win this game, and I do expect the market to move in their favor based off of where I see the ratings right now. And it's also the Chiefs. Like, I don't think you're going to have a lot of people fading Patrick Mahomes on Thanksgiving Day. This is going to be one of the most watched Thanksgiving games ever in the NFL. Chiefs at Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. The night game, Cincinnati at Baltimore. Line 7.5 right now, kind of drifting. Actually, I'm seeing some flat 7s out there. So it's kind of 7.5, depending on where you do your shopping. I make it 11.5. Again, I did upgrade Cincinnati considerably for getting Burrow back this week. If it was Flacco, this line's double digits for sure. The question is, how healthy is Burrow? If it's not full Burrow, like if Burrow's like 75% because of the toe, and it's his first game back against the Ravens defense, the Ravens need the game bad for their playoff hopes. Remember, they're just 6-5. They had a rough start. I feel like I'm betting Baltimore at 7 here, especially if this thing keeps moving down. Like all of a sudden, if Burrow announced in line moves to under 7, I'm betting the Ravens if I can get less than a touchdown. But at a touchdown, probably priced right. I don't know. I think Baltimore wins this game. Baltimore is going to be probably in a lot of teasers this week. The Bengals battled against the Patriots. We'll see if they can get back up for this game on the road against a physical team. Baltimore is going to slam it right down their throats. That is something New England didn't do that the Ravens will do in this game. Chicago at Philly, that is the Black Friday game. Eagles a 7-point favorite currently. I make the game 5.5. I think this goes back to the classic example of the market doesn't fully trust Chicago. Even I'm a little bit higher on Chicago than the market, and the market hates Chicago. Maybe they're not downgrading Philly enough for the game today, but off a loss, I think Philly is going to be game. They're at home. Everyone's going to be betting the Eagles. I'd be shocked if this one gets beneath a touchdown, but if it does, I might consider betting Philly. But considering I make the game 5.5, I really don't see a ton of value at a Philly 6.5, so I'm probably going to lay off that one. The Sunday games, Houston at Indy. Here's where I see value, right? Line's 3.5. I make it 1.5. I am higher on Houston than the market. I think Houston is a sleeping giant. I think C.J. Stroud is going to return this week. I think that's going to make this line go down. I would be shocked if this line closes at 3.5. One of my favorite early plays for Week 13 in the NFL, Texans plus 3.5. I've already got it in pocket. I've already given it out to my Discord. I would absolutely bet the Texans plus 3.5. I think the hooks are going to be gone by Sunday. Arizona at Tampa. Tough one to gauge because of the Baker Mayfield injury, but right now I make it 4.5 and the line was 5.5. I'm probably not going to do anything with this anyways, because my number is pretty close to where the Sportsbook number is right now. And now you got the Baker injury to deal with, so I would probably put this one on the back burner for a while. Jacksonville at Tennessee. Jaguars -7. I make it 6.5. Probably not going to do much here. Tough to lay on the road with Jacksonville. Titans have been feistier lately. Maybe they cover this one. You get the full 7. Rams at Carolina. Line was 9.5. I make it 8.5. Probably not going to do much here. Carolina's going to be on a short week. Rams look like they're the best team in the NFL. Probably a popular teaser spot this week if you can get the Rams through both keys. New Orleans at Miami. Here's another one where I see some value. I make the game 9.5. The line right now is 5.5. I think Miami is a little bit undervalued. They're coming off the bye. It looks like they're fighting for Mike McDaniel. They've won a couple games since his, almost firing, since kind of the rock bottom spot. They've covered some games too, even going back to prior to that. And New Orleans, we know what the Saints are, guys. Tyler Shuck ain't it. That Saints offense, right? They traded away Shaheed. They just lost Kamara to an MCL injury. Check his status this week, but if he doesn't play, that's their two best offensive players, Shaheed and Kamara, now out. Shaheed obviously traded to Seattle. Kamara with the MCL, we'll see. But I kind of think Miami is a play-on team down the stretch. We've hit their rock bottom, and now they've kind of bounced back. And Tua ain't going anywhere. He's under contract next year. They still have Jalen Waddle. They can still run the ball. I don't trust New Orleans going down to Miami and playing a good game. So I think anything under a touchdown, I would bet the Dolphins here. I laid 5.5. This was the other, early play that I gave out to my Discord on Sunday night. Dolphins -5.5. I think they continue to play well. I think they've won 3 in a row. Hold on, let me check. I feel like they've won 3 in a row over the last few weeks, and now they're coming off the bye. They've won 3 out of 4, right? Beat the Falcons, beat the Bills, beat the Commanders, and then they lost to the Ravens in between. I think Miami's going to not, run off 6 straight wins to close the year, but I think Miami's going to compete down the stretch. I do. I think Tua, again, fighting for that. He's going to be back next year, so it's not like they're just punting on him. And they're fighting for McDaniel. So I think Miami's a play-on team down the stretch, especially if you're getting some value against a really bad Saints team, guys. The Saints, we expected them to be the worst team in the NFL. Besides the Jets and the Titans, they are right there. Speaking of the Jets, they are a home dog to Atlanta. Market is 2.5. I make it 4.5. Do I want to lay points on the road with Kirk Cousins? But under a field goal, I would consider it with Atlanta. The Jets are really bad, guys. The Jets are really bad. Tyrod Taylor's, he's awful. And that Falcons defense, which clamped down on Shuck, I think they'll clamp down on the Jets this week. I think the Falcons win that game. I do. early market movement towards Atlanta. I would lay it with Atlanta under a field goal. San Francisco at Cleveland. Again, the Niners play on Monday night, so their rating's still incomplete for this week. But right now, I make the game 7.5, and the market is at 6.5. So obviously, 7's a key, but I'm only a point off, and the Niners still have to play. So I wouldn't do anything with that right now. Minnesota at Seattle. Seattle right now about an 8 to 9 point favorite. I make it 9.5. I would assume that number probably keeps climbing. Remember, we're really down on Minnesota, and Seattle's got probably the best defense in the NFL. J.J. McCarthy going to Seattle against that defense, woof. This one could absolutely get out of hand, and I'm sure it'll be a very popular teaser bet this week to get Seattle through both keys and essentially make that a money line bet on the Seahawks. Buffalo, Pittsburgh. This one is in Pittsburgh. I make it 4.5. It's 3.5. Aaron Rodgers will be back. Bills off a loss, off the mini bye. You would expect Buffalo to take care of business here. If it gets announced that Rodgers is back and we get a 3, maybe I'll bet Buffalo -3. But at 3.5, I don't really trust the Bills right now, frankly. So really tough one. The Steelers also are very desperate in that situation. That's a huge game. The loser of that game might not make the playoffs in the AFC. Honestly, that is a massive game on Sunday afternoon in Pittsburgh. Raiders at Chargers. Chargers right now, it looks like about a 9.5 point favorite. I make it 9.5. The Raiders obviously coming off the Chip Kelly firing. They look like total trash. But sometimes you get a dead cat bounce. We'll see if the play calling's any crisper this week, but I'm probably not doing much with that game, if anything at all. At least on the spread. Maybe we get some props. Denver at Washington. The Broncos right now a 6.5 point favorite. I make this 10.5. Now, maybe I'm a little too low on Mariota. Or maybe the market just doesn't quite grasp what the Broncos are at this point, which is a team that when they show me their peak, the Broncos' peak might be better than a lot of teams' peak because that defense is legit, even without Surtain. And the offensive line, like they are really good in the trenches, and they've got a damn good head coach. Like they're a tough team to beat. It almost seems like the Broncos kind of have to beat themselves in a sense. Because if they play their game, they might be one of the best teams in the league. But I don't fully trust the quarterback in the big spots, and I don't know if the coach fully trusts the quarterback. I think sometimes they rely too much on their bulliness and not enough on their quarterback. And in the big game, sometimes that gets you in trouble. I probably will be on Denver here because my number is 4 points off from the market, and it's beneath a key. But I haven't bet it yet. I'm a little hesitant to lay on the road with the Broncos, but I do think Denver is the side. Giants at Patriots, the Monday night game. I make it 10.5. The market's at 7.5. Probably should tease New England down. The Giants, though, and man, tough to bet against Jameis Winston after what we saw on Sunday. But I mean, he's going to have a blow up at some point. It's just a matter of when. And when he does have it, that's when they'll go back to dart. Maybe it's on the road against New England on Monday night. Although the way the Saints have been playing, the way the Patriots have been playing, kind of with that, risk-reward quotient of Drake May holding on to the ball for so damn long and throwing pick sixes. Maybe this is the game that the Giants get. Who knows, right? The Giants always own the Patriots, right? I'm sure Eli Manning and the Manning cast will be fired up for that one. Giants at Patriots Monday night, but I'm not playing that one from a side perspective. All right, that's a look at the upgrades, downgrades, ratings, Lookahead lines, NFL in the books. Really comprehensive segment. That is the guts of what we're going to do every week, guys. We're going to get you set for the next week. We're going to react to everything we saw. We're going to upgrade. We're going to downgrade. We're going to refocus, readjust, and make sure our ratings are set for the following week. So my two favorite look-ahead early bets for Week 13. Nothing on Thursday yet. I'll probably get to the prop window on Thursday. Although I think I might be on Kansas City. But I like the Dolphins at -5.5, and I like the Texans at +3.5. Those are my two early bets for Week 13 in the NFL. All right, let's move on to the college football world. Let's give you my college football playoff predictions for week 13. We are entering the final week of the regular season. We have made it. My top 10 is pretty set. In fact, my top 10 right now is probably in line with the ratings. And I think that's the most important thing. So Brad Powers does a great job, professional college football bettor. He's very funny on social media too. He put out a post of the top 10 college football teams per his ratings. And frankly, I think these should be the 10 playoff teams besides like a group of 5 and an ACC champion. Or really just a group of 5 because we already have an ACC team in here. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, A&M, Alabama, Texas Tech, Miami, Ole Miss. Those are his top 10 teams in his power ratings. So my top 10 looks very similar. The only difference is I don't have Miami in. I have Oklahoma in. That's the only difference. My top 10 is pretty much the exact same as his. I have Notre Dame a little bit lower. He's got Notre Dame second. I've got Notre Dame ninth. But that's just because they've lost 2 games. That's not because I don't think they're a top 5 team. I still think that Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, and Alabama, those 4 teams, the 2 best teams in the Big Ten, the 2 best teams in the SEC. I'm not sold on A&M. I'm just not. Maybe I'm wrong on them. I'm willing to be wrong on them. But I think A&M is the 3rd best team in the SEC. I think Oregon's the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. I think there are 2 clear-cut teams in each conference that are ready to win the national championship. The rest, so I'll give you my 12 teams that I have in the field today based off of the predictions that I'm going to make. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, A&M 3, Georgia 4, Texas Tech 5, Oregon 6, Ole Miss 7, Oklahoma 8, Notre Dame 9, Bama 10. I've got Virginia in the ACC. I have no freaking clue who's going to win the ACC. It looks like it's going to be Virginia against SMU in the championship game. But even if one of those teams wins the ACC championship, I don't know if they're going to be ranked high enough to make the college football playoff. I honestly think the ACC's best chance of getting a college football playoff team in is Miami as an at-large. How crazy is that for the conference? And I've got Tulane as my G5. I mean, it looks like they're going to play North Texas in the American, and it looks like the American Conference, I think, has the best chance to be the G5. JMU really laid an egg against Wazoo. They barely won. They were already getting disregarded by the committee, and I don't think a 3-point win over Wazoo when you're a 2-touchdown favorite is going to change that perspective. I think, frankly, we need to get rid of this whole automatic qualifier garbage. Just give me the 12 best teams. Take Brad Powers' power ratings and give me the 12 best teams. The power ratings should be more impactful when deciding who's best in the playoff race. There is a difference between most deserving and best team, and I think what I'm learning based on the college football playoff, the best team matters more. They want the best teams. They don't necessarily want the most deserving. If they wanted the most deserving teams, they would have put Florida State in a couple years ago when they lost Jordan Travis because they were undefeated. But they lost Jordan Travis, and so it didn't matter because they weren't the best team anymore without Jordan Travis because their power rating dropped. So we're already kind of looking in that direction. I think we need to continue to go down that road. And I think the ACC and the Group of 5 this year is the prime example. Neither the ACC champion, because it's going to be either Virginia or SMU, or the Group of 5 champion, Tulane or North Texas or Navy or whoever, those teams are not one of the top 12 teams in college football this year. Maybe in another year they would be, but this year they're not. This year, the top 12 teams in college football are in mostly the Big Ten and the SEC. Texas Tech and BYU have a case, but it's the Big Ten and the SEC. I'm sorry, that's just the reality we live in. And Miami. But Miami lost 2 conference games, and the rest of the ACC is wackadoo, so Miami's not going to get into the championship game. The ACC's best chance to make the college football playoff is through an at-large in Miami. It's wild. It really is. I still have Ohio State beating Georgia in my national championship game. I still think Ohio State's legit. I think Georgia's legit too, guys. I think Gunnar Stockton's the real deal. I think the top 10 here, right? I think Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, pending Lane Kiffin's decision. We'll get to that in a minute. Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Bama. You throw Miami in there. Like, these are really good football teams. They deserve to be in the playoff. That, to me, is where I'm at. I think the top 5 is safely in the field. I think Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Georgia, Texas Tech. I think those 5 teams are in no matter what. I think Oregon, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Bama, they have to win. Bama definitely has to win. Notre Dame definitely has to win. Oklahoma definitely has to win. Ole Miss, maybe. But, let's say Ole Miss loses to Mississippi State, and they've got 2 losses, and then Lane Kiffin leaves. What do you do with Mississippi then? Do you downgrade Mississippi based on Lane Kiffin leaving? I guess. I'm telling you, this is going to be a interesting decision by the committee. You've got 2-loss Notre Dame going up against 2-loss Miami. Miami beat Notre Dame. Miami's behind Notre Dame in the rankings. You've got that conversation. You've got the Alabama-Oklahoma conversation where Oklahoma beat Alabama, but Alabama's got the higher rating. A lot of weird questions that are going to get answered over the next 2 weeks. I'm glad I'm not the committee, but also I'm glad that this is happening because I think it's going to push for more change. Like last year when Arizona State and Boise got the byes, people went crazy and they got rid of that little wrinkle where the automatic qualifiers get the byes. Now it's just the top teams. I think this year with the ACC and the group of 5 chaos, we're going to get more reform that says this is ridiculous. Just give us the top 12 teams. Enough of this group of 5 and automatic qualifiers. Just give us the top 12 teams, regardless of conference. It's going to be mostly the Big Ten and the SEC, but those are the best teams, people. Wake up and smell the roses. All right, huge games this week. I mentioned the Ole Miss Mississippi State game. Massive game in Stark Vegas. I love that this is the first game out of the chute. It sets the tone. Chaos scenario where Mississippi State wins the game and Lane announces his departure. I can absolutely see the committee leaving out a 10-2 Ole Miss team that loses their head coach. This is also a huge game for the Bulldogs because if they win, it'll be 6. And that's bowl eligibility for a team that had a preseason win total of 2.5. Good job by Jeff Lebby. I hope Mississippi State wins. I'll be rooting like heck for the Bulldogs in this one, but they are an underdog. Also on Friday, A&M at Texas. You can make the case that the Aggies are actually better off losing this game and missing out on the SEC championship and resting up for a home game in the first round of the playoffs, a la Ohio State last year. That might actually be the more favorable path. Then you get that loss out of the way. You're not undefeated anymore. You get rest, an extra week, and then you get a home game in the first round of the playoff. You get that win early, and it vaults you to the next round. That's exactly what happened with Ohio State last year, and they used that momentum to win the national championship. I'm not saying Mike Elko's going to play his cards this way, but if I was A&M, I would not be upset if I lost this game. And obviously Texas still has that slim playoff hope, so they're going to be up for it. It's a rivalry game. I think I'm going to bet Texas in this game. Probably. I probably will. Saturday, we've got Oregon at Washington. This is a sneaky spot for the Ducks. I think if Oregon loses this game, I think they're out. I don't think Oregon gets in at 10-2, not with their record and who they've beaten this year. Teams like Vandy and Texas will be rooting hard for the Huskies in this game. If Oregon loses, it could open up an at-large spot. Like, what do you do? 10-2 Oregon, 9-3 Texas. Texas played a brutal schedule. They lost to they lost to Ohio State. They lost to Georgia. They lost to Florida. Ugh. But Oregon, who the heck is Oregon beating? Their losses are a little better, right? Indiana and maybe Washington. But 10-2 Oregon against 9-3 Texas. 10-2 Oregon against 10-2 Vandy. I think Vandy gets in. And then, of course, Vandy at Tennessee. I think Vandy's in with a win, guys. I really do. And I wouldn't completely eliminate Tennessee just yet, right? Let's say Tennessee beats Vandy. Oregon loses at Washington. A&M beats Texas. You've got 9-3 Tennessee against a 10-2 Oregon. Whew. I don't know, man. Like, who are Tennessee's losses? Then they lose to Tennessee lost to Bama. Tennessee lost to Bama, Georgia, and Oklahoma. Like, those are 3 damn good losses. I I still think Tennessee and Texas both are live. I honestly do. Um, we'll see how it plays out. It should be a whole lot of fun. Obviously, we'll see how the chips fall, but I'll be right back here with you, recording another episode Sunday night, and we'll recap all of this chaos, and I'll tell you who I think will be the college football playoff teams next week before championship weekend. But right now, I think Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Oregon, I think those teams all need to win. And if they lose, woof, they could be out. Obviously, the Bama game at Auburn is massive for the Crimson Tide. They'll be a slight favorite in that game. Notre Dame will be a huge favorite against Stanford. And Jeremiah Love. Let's talk about the Heisman. Remember a month ago when I said the dark horse to win the Heisman this year was going to be Jeremiah Love at 18-1. Go back and watch that show. I believe it was October 27th. It was about a month ago, 4 weeks ago. And I said Jeremiah Love at 18-1 is your Heisman dark horse. Why? Because no quarterback is running away with the award this year. 4 weeks later, we are in the exact same position we were. No quarterback is running away with this award. Fernando Mendoza, I love him. He is a tough, big, physical, talented quarterback. Doesn't really strike me as the Heisman. Jeremiah Love is the best player in college football. You want to make the case for the Texas Tech linebacker? I'm not going to argue with that, but linebackers don't win this award. So we need to look on the offensive side, unless we get a Travis Hunter situation, which we obviously don't have this year. We're in the Ashton Jeanty scenario here, where if Travis Hunter didn't unicorn his way through college football last season, Ashton Jeanty wins the Heisman. Not 12-0 Dylan Gabriel. I think that's the direction we go this year. If the Heisman was awarded today, I would give it to Jeremiah Love. I would. Now, maybe Julian Sayin destroys Michigan next week, and they get that monkey off their back, and then they go into the Big Ten championship game, and they beat undefeated Indiana. All right. Then you can make the case that maybe Julian Sayin's the Heisman. For Fernando Mendoza, I think if he plays really well against Ohio State and they win, I think you can make that case too. And I think he'll probably be the favorite if Indiana wins. He'll probably be the favorite come Heisman night. But remember, this award is decided by humans, and the market is very reactionary. The market is not predictive. The market has been telling us that a quarterback is going to win this award all season pretty much. The market's wrong about this stuff sometimes. I think Jeremiah Love is starting to get some of that groundswell. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. If Notre Dame unleashes him, he is the best player in the sport. And he looks different. He looks like Reggie Bush. It's really tough for a running back to win the award in this current climate. You have to be exceptional. And you have to get a few breaks. Maybe you need Julian Sayin to just play average against Michigan and win, and then play average against Indiana and win. And it's like a defensive game against the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers in the Big Ten title. Maybe you need that to bounce your way. But I'll tell you what, I'll be betting some Jeremiah Love props this week against Stanford. That's for damn sure. He did the Heisman pose against Syracuse. They want to get him this award. Would I make the bet now? I think it's down to like 5-1. Mendoza's odds on. Sayin's like 3-4-1. Jeremiah Love's like 4-5-1. I mean, I would consider it. I have a couple of nibbles of 18-1, which I'm very proud of. And I hope when you were listening to the show 4 weeks ago, you made a little wager on it. I get those free bets at BetMGM. I get them for like $10 a pop every week or so. I put 2 of them down on Jeremiah Love at 18-1. So $20 to win 360. I'm not like going to retire, but that's about 3.5 units for me. So I'm not too upset about it if Jeremiah Love wins the award and they were all free wagers. I would consider it. I really would. I think he wins the award. I do. I think Love, to me, should be higher up on the board. And after he torches Stanford on Saturday, he won't be the favorite, but he'll probably continue to gain market steam. So it's not like he's going to drop in the market, right? Unless he gets hurt against Stanford, because they're going to give him the ball a bunch. They want him to win this award. And I don't necessarily see, unless Julian Sayin goes berserk against Michigan next Saturday, which is possible. I don't see Sayin's number dropping either. And Mendoza plays Purdue, so you're not going to move his number at all, and he's already the odds-on favorite. I would bet Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love's going to win the Heisman. I'll make the prediction right here. I'm recording this on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. I think Jeremiah Love wins the Heisman in 2025. All right, let's get to the end of the show. What we typically do, Rise and Wine, where I vent about something in sports that has been bothering me, and I'm going to vent about a commercial. Why? Well, we don't talk about gambling all the time here on the show. Obviously, this is not a gambling show, but I am a gambling analyst, and it is a major part of the national conversation. So sometimes when these social topics seep into the national spotlight, I feel the need to chime in. And frankly, I think my perspective is valuable because I think I straddle both worlds, right? I come from a sports reporting, news reporting background where I see the truth objectively. And then I also come from a gambling degenerate background where I love to bet and I bet on sports for a living, essentially. You know, I play a professional gambler on TV, basically. I'm not a professional gambler by trade, but I play one on TV pretty often, and people think that I'm a professional gambler, which is always a funny conversation to have off air. But I think we have reached a saturation point and an overindulgence with advertising. And I think the next wave of gambling regulation, like I said this on last week's show, is going to be to tighten the screws of the bets that are being offered, how much we can risk on said bets, and just the overall regulation of gambling needs to be a little bit tighter to try to weed out some of these bad actors. We can't get rid of legalization. We can't unlegalize because that'll push everyone offshore. We need to keep the regulated, legalized markets humming in America, but we need to do a better job of managing some of the risk. And I have reached wit's end with the commercials about parlays. Every commercial I see for a sports book likely has some kind of parlay mention. In this particular instance, I'm going to be chiming in on FanDuel's pass the leg commercial. What is that? So I'm seeing this commercial almost every single game now where it's a Thanksgiving themed parlay, pass the leg. So one person, right, it's like a group parlay. One person starts it and says, here's my leg. And then they invite a friend and then they add a parlay leg. And then they invite a friend and they add a leg. And who knows how long and how deep the rabbit hole goes. But we need less commercials about how cool parlays are. Parlays are not cool. Are they fun? Maybe. They're losing wagers. That is the wager that nets the most amount of profit for the sports books, usually about 30%. It's called the hold percentage. On straight bets, it's about 5%. So 5 cents of every dollar is what the hold is for a straight bet. On a parlay, it's like 30 cents for every dollar. They're terrible wagers. Are they fun when they hit? Of course. They don't hit that often. So I think what we need to do is to have more commercials educating gamblers in entertaining ways. What do I mean by that? You can have a commercial about a parlay, but how about we do it in fun SNL fashion where we make it like it's a drug that you're purchasing? You know when you see a drug commercial and they have to list the side effects at the end of the commercial? This will cause bleeding, rectal leakage, and blah, blah, blah. We need to do the exact same thing for parlays. So a Saturday Night Lifestyle commercial about a parlay with funny disclosures at the end that actually tell the truth, like actual odds of winning are lower than your payout. Parlays will cause likely reduction in bankroll. Please consult a professional before wagering. We need to make these commercials a little bit more informative in an entertaining way. We need to inform the bettor that a parlay is a losing wager. That doesn't mean you can't make them. People eat junk food all the time. But we need to stop making it seem like all the celebrities are doing it and it's cool. It's like Mad Men back in the day when they were trying to advertise cigarettes. They will kill you. Doesn't mean you can't smoke them from time to time because everybody has a vice. But we need to inform the public better. Do it in a funny way. Make a commercial like a drug and put the disclosures at the end. Parlays will cause loss of bankroll. Actual odds of winning are lower than your payout. Please consult a professional before wagering. Just trying to add a little bit of information to the situation so people don't watch these commercials and run to their app to bet a parlay because all the celebrities told them to do it and it looked cool. We need to move past this as a society. We need to educate the gambler. Gambling ain't going anywhere, so let's make the better smarter. And let's stop pushing them to the parlay rabbit hole because I think it's making things worse. All right, we wrap up the show with Morning Glory. And I'll give you a brief preview for Monday Night Football, and I'll give you a prop wager for the 49ers against the Panthers. Let's look at what the current lines are here as I get out my handy-dandy odds calculator. All right, so I do like the Niners to win the game. I do have the Niners in a teaser to finish off a teaser with the Rams that I won on Sunday night. It looks like as I record this here on a Sunday night before the game on Monday night, it looks like about a 7.5 point home favorite for San Francisco. Total is 50. So I bet the Brock Purdy passing yards prop over. 250.5 is what I got. Looks like on FanDuel that number is still available right now. So Brock Purdy over 250.5 passing yards. My Morning Glory best bet for Monday Night Football. The underlying metrics are telling me Brock Purdy is an upgrade from Mac Jones. And Purdy looked fantastic last week. We saw the success rate go up. Sack rate goes down. Scramble rate goes up, so he's making more plays with his legs. You've got Pearsall and Kittle looking healthy. And I think this Panthers offense, which looked great last week against Bryce Young or against the Falcons. I don't know what it is about Bryce Young against the Falcons, but I just have a feeling home road splits have been a hell of a drug for the Panthers in this season. And I don't know. The Panthers, I have a feeling they come back down to earth in a big way in this game. I think the Niners keep their momentum going. I think they win this game. They have to win this game to keep pace with the Rams in the NFC West because the Rams just keep winning. And I think Brock Purdy has a big game and goes over his passing yards prop. So give me the Niners quarterback over 250.5 passing yards. Morning Glory for this most recent episode of The Morning After. Episode 9 in the books. Again, I appreciate you tuning into the show. Don't forget, click like, click subscribe, sign up for the newsletter. Keep supporting the content. I cannot do this without you. I appreciate all of your support. We will continue to churn out great content, and we have some fun things coming down the pipe as we push through Thanksgiving into Christmas and then across the finish line for 2025 and into 2026. Enjoy your holiday. Eat extra turkey. You don't need as much of the stuffing and the potatoes. Save on the carbs. I go higher on dessert. I'm a big dessert guy. Pumpkin pie, apple pie. I stay away from the stuffing and the potatoes. I'll usually go heavy turkey, heavy cranberry sauce, heavy green bean casserole, maybe a little bit of sweet potatoes, which I like, and then a big dessert tray. I mean, just pile on the cookies and the pies and the cakes. That's probably my favorite part about Thanksgiving. But enjoy it with your family. I love you all. I appreciate it. Hit the like button on your way out, and I will see you next week on The Morning After.